asked the question after our Thursday podcast, Tim Priester, is this still a rivalry? Well, Boston College certainly treated it like one today, possessing the football for 11 minutes more than did the Fighting Irish, but ultimately Notre Dame pulled away 25-10. This is Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis from Chestnut Hill, once again brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana. Tim Priester, frustrating day for the Irish running game, other than a 94-yard run by Jeremiyah Love. You know, those count too, is what we like to say at
They
Irish
do.
Illustrated. But other than that, the longest run of the day was a 10-yarder by CJ Carr.
That's pretty wild. And Tim, you mentioned the rivalry, and unfortunately, only one team really treated it like a rivalry. And look, Notre Dame just didn't hit their mark today at all. They left their motivation and, frankly, their common sense at times back in the locker room at Notre Dame. I don't understand some of the decision making by some of the defensive players when it's clearly obvious that you need to avoid some situations. But hey, the defense played great. Chris Ash's defense is playing fantastic once again. The 21 first downs by Boston College, that's a little troubling because BC was 8 of 18 on third down and then 2 of 4 on fourth down. And so, that's why they piled up the first downs. But otherwise, the defense did a great job against the run. They negated Turbo Richard big time. Credit to Boston College going to Grayson James. He did a good job, but his numbers were still pretty pedestrian when it came down to it. And the Notre Dame defense was outstanding when it had to be. Chris Ash has done a remarkable job since the first 10 quarters of the season.
You know, it's shocking. They had a 21. If people didn't, of course, a lot of people didn't see this game, so actually, it's important to fill in some blanks here. To open the second half, Boston College, 21 plays, 74 yards, 8 third or fourth downs on that drive. It ended in a field goal. That was huge because it kept the score 12-10 instead of Notre Dame going down 14-12. We'll get to why they had 12 in a minute. Luke Talmadge with a third down win on a pass into the end zone. I mean, that was a crucial turning point, and they actually Notre Dame looked to have a fourth down stop when Josh Burnham burst through for a sack, but he was called for I've been told, a dubious face mask penalty. We had a Michael Scott sized television as our replay, so no one got to see any replays in this game today up here at Alumni Stadium. But Tim, Notre Dame really withstood it. You mentioned Chris Ash. They withstood something that hasn't happened to them in a while. The short yardage gains. BC was determined to get it, and they ran on 3rd and 1, and they ran on 4th and 1, and they converted on one of the two on that entire drive.
Yeah, I give Turbo Richard credit because I've seen him play all year now, and I know what he's capable of doing. But the face mask penalty, look, I understand some of these late hits, which are horrendous, including one that was called against Boston College. I understand those to the extent that the decree is for them to protect the quarterbacks. I get that. How do you call a face mask penalty when there was no face mask penalty? You have to actually see it happen, right?
Yeah,
In order to
yeah.
call it. There was no face mask penalty. Now, maybe he grabbed the back of his helmet, what have you, but that's just an egregious call. Jalen Sneed, what in the world are you thinking on an incomplete 3rd and 10? And look, everybody loves Kingston Viliamuasa, but the dude's got to get control of his emotions. This has been a pattern throughout the season. I don't know where it's come from. There have been unsportsmanlike penalties that could have been called against him other times throughout the season. He's a great football player, dude. Dial it back in and be in control of your emotions because you're going to hurt your football team.
So Marcus Freeman mentioned post-game, and Viliamuasa echoed it. We did speak with Viliamuasa, by the way. He was a defensive representative. They said they don't know what the penalty was about. It was clearly the throat slash, though, which is an automatic penalty. It's illegal automatic. It's the same as the quote-unquote brandishing a weapon. So I'm positive
which was called on him previously. And really it was more up around the face, but anytime you do a motion like that, they're going to call that. He's a better football player than I know. A lot of people are probably going to get upset with me mentioning that because they love KVA and I love his game too, but this is in his best interest to dial that stuff back.
Well, let me give you a good KVA stat along with Drake Bowen. I was looking for defensive MVPs for this game, and that middle linebacker pairing, 23 tackles, including 20 solo, 2.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss, and a pair of third down wins. Playing football.
Every one of Bowen's 14 tackles was solo. At least that's how it was listed.
That's remarkable.
And we've gotten this far without even talking about the kicking game, which is it's a disaster.
Well, we decided to bury the lead because it's not a whole lot of fun for Irish fans, and this is Irish Illustrated Insider Tim. Pretty sure you know, but they missed their first extra point. That was Noah Burnett. They missed their second extra point. That was Marcelo Diomede. They missed a 35-yard field goal to end the half. That was Eric Schmidt, and it was just as crippling as the extra points. And Diomede did make good on a extra point with a sarcastic cheer after Jeremiyah Love's 94-yard touchdown run. Other one, Marcus Freeman said when Jack Sobel asked him about what went wrong in the kicking game, he said, every time we kicked the ball, it didn't go in between the uprights. I appreciate the anger and the sarcasm, but they have an issue in the kicking game, and it's different than the issue they have with Jadarian Price fumbling at the goal line. They have poor kicking, a poor kicking game. And it's not going away.
No, they do. And Marty Biagi is just a great special teams coach. And you know, unfortunately, this falls on him too, because he was a kicker and punter in college. And so you always talk about, well, that's an advantage that Notre Dame has because of that. But look, these guys are in the wrong frame of mind. I can't stand watching kickers that feel for the football, and that's what Burnett is doing. And Schmidt and Diomede had no belief whatsoever that their kicks were going to go through the uprights. Actually, they listed Schmidt as kicking that last extra point, but it was Diomede. Yeah, it was Diomede. But I don't. Their heads are just all screwed up. I hate chasing points early in the game, but heck, if you can't kick them, maybe you should spend more time on your
2-point plays.
Array of 2-point plays, because this is ridiculous. I mean, that is not even major college level. And I wrote it in my snap judgments. I'm tired of hearing about guys that come out of these camps and they're the number one kicker in the country. You're not the number one kicker in the country until you face the pressure of a major college football game. And these guys are not prepared for it right now.
I want to give some rundown defensively of the heroes, as you mentioned. It was other than one drive to end the first half that became very troubling, because Notre Dame went from sacking the quarterback and getting the ball back to try to score to giving up an 18-yard pass on third down, a 22-yard pass, a 16-yard pass, and a 20-yard pass to set up a 25-yard touchdown. Tim Prister against Leonard Moore, who interfered, of all people. That's what it looked like this rivalry might rear its ugly head. But defensively, the Irish were very good otherwise. The safeties had Tay Johnson 2 picks, Don Schuler a crucial red zone pick, Luke Talich 3 third down stops, which, as your backup safety, that's a heck of an effort.
Incredible.
Defensive line, Jason Onye had 3 official quarterback hurries. Heinisch and Dawson both had one. Dawson began the game with 2 run stuffs, including one on third down. And then Josh Burnham played his best game by far. He was called for that penalty, but he had 3 tackles for loss, and he was called for the face mask, as I mentioned. That's a heck of an effort by a lot of individuals when you're looking up and down the list. And you talked about burying the lead. We didn't mention CJ Carr, who was the offensive MVP of this game.
No, he did. He did a real solid job. He missed one deep, but you know, I mean, BC, obviously they're putting guys in the box and dared them to throw the football, which once again makes you wonder what the hell USC was doing against Notre Dame. But no, he did a fine job. And Jeremiyah Love padded the stats, but it was not good. Other than that 94-yard run, it was 28 carries for 65 yards. And now you see a first-time starter left guard in Sullivan Abshire, a 2-game starter in Joe Otting, and no Charles Jagusa. Fortunate. They're going to have to play Pittsburgh here in a couple of weeks, and I'm not really sure. It's one thing to get 305 against USC when they're not tough and they're in the wrong kind of defense to defend Notre Dame. But with Pittsburgh coming up, and now Navy's going to be angry, and Navy's got some. Navy's been a very good run defense team in recent years. They're just going to have to be better. Now, I need to review the game to see exactly how the offensive line played and the defensive line. I really don't have much of a perspective on the individual defensive players, but Josh Burnham was outstanding. Onye certainly flashed. Traore flashed. Mm-hmm. Hey, they had 12 tackles for loss. They came into the game with 28 for the season in the previous 7 games. 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hurries. A bunch of other, a bunch of really, really good stats from what they did up front. Boston College, I didn't think had a great offensive line, but having watched them through the year, I thought they had a better offensive line than their rushing numbers indicated.
CJ Carr did finish 18 for 25, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. And I want to highlight that because if he had a turnover, this game would have been a lot closer than 25-10, and there would have been a lot of angst. And I want to wrap with this, Tim. 25-10 would have looked a lot better if you could have hit that 33-10 range in this game, but Notre Dame didn't deserve to. Boston College came to play more than Notre Dame did today.
They definitely did. Marcus Freeman was trying to get into the 30s. This was a game that definitely should have been in the 40s. I did want to mention, he's calling timeouts at the end of the first half, and I know people are going to complain about that, but that's his MO. That's worked for Notre Dame in the past. It didn't this time. It's like going for 4th and short, when you're in minus territory. When it works, you don't think anything of it. When it doesn't work, you point it out as a problem, but he's an aggressive coach. I thought he was making the right decisions and calling those timeouts at the end of the first half.
Ultimately, the only thing that worked today is what matters, the win. Notre Dame wins 25-10 against a game Boston College team. For Tim Priester, I'm Tim O'Malley, and Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana. We will see you Monday with the Irish Illustrated Insider Podcast.